Hi, today I will walk you through how we can transform your Palantir ontology into a probabilistic graph that lets you explore cascading consequences within your activity. And I'm gonna do that by taking supply chain as an example. So here you can see what could resemble a Vertex graph on Palantir Foundry, and it's essentially a very simplified version of an end-to-end graphite supply chain for an automotive OEM. So you go from the tier 3 suppliers in natural and synthetic graphite to the OEM putting it into their vehicles. So you have the tier 3, the tier 2, the tier 1, and then you have your battery. So you have this Vertex graph on Palantir Foundry, and that's already great because you have a lot of visibility about your supply chain and already can do some what-if analysis. So if something happened there, I know that this could spell trouble for the rest of the supply chain. But it is limited because it's essentially just mapping the chain. It tells you if something happens there, then X and Y could be impacted, but it does not tell you how likely it is. Also, Foundry is very data-oriented, which is great. This is what they call source of truth. But when you have missing data, it becomes a very limited tool, and you have a lot of blank spots that you can't really integrate into your ontology and your model. And that's where I would say our approach can supplement your current ontology. If you already have a vertex graph or something similar, we can transpose that graph uh, onto our tool, so you can see here you can find the same structure. So you have the tier 3 guys, the tier 2 guys, and the tier 1 guys. And you can see that we can take that graph and build around it to make it probabilistic. And most importantly, integrate uncertain variables that you know are there and impact several elements of your supply chain. You just don't know how much. You have a lot of uncertainty because that data is very sparse and it's not something that you have directly in your company. And all of a sudden, by doing that, for instance, you can model the probability of severe disruption in your supply chain, given certain things in the environment of your supply chain happen. This is the goal of that particular graph. So here I have did a bunch of potential different disruption factors and connected them to the relevant part of the supply chain. And I've modeled how likely of a severe disruption is going to be if they turn out to be true on that node. So you can see a bunch of factors. So that can be China that bans the export of graphite, currency risk, logistic disruption, tariff, and so on. You have a bunch of them. Again, it's a simplified version. A lot of time your supply chain is going to be way more complex than that. And by doing that, you can finally model the uncertainty of supply chain, and you can answer several types of questions. So for instance, you can see that in complete uncertainty, you already have a lot of risk around your battery because of graphite. Here, by itself, you have a 62% that a severe disruption happen in complete certainty. Sorry, in real life, you are not in complete uncertainty at all times, but this is what the inference does, and you can try and see that, for instance, if you build an inventory buffer, you can reduce your uncertainty and your risk of disruption. Not by a lot, because obviously it will be a temporary, let's say, solution, but that's still a solution. Also, something that you can see is among my tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, who is the most likely cause of disruption? And you can see that it's BTR and Shenzhen in this case, and it's very less likely to be the tier 3, and still quite risky the tier 1 because it depends directly on the tier 2. And the reason tier 2 here is as risky as it is because those are Chinese companies, and well, the geopolitical tension can happen, and you're always, let's say, at the risk of China banning those kind of exports. One other simulation that you can try is, for instance, if oil price goes up by a lot, who is going to be impacted and how much? And you can see that all of a sudden, the risk in natural graphite and synthetic graphite, both, they increase by a lot because you use petroleum to get synthetic graphite, and you also need a lot of heat for natural graphite. So both of those are at risk. And by knowing that, you can, let's say, identify the biggest risk in your supply chain, where it is, and what kind of solution you can take to mitigate them. So there you go. Here, that was just a quick example how we can help you model the uncertain part of your ontology and complete what you may already have on Palantir Foundry. Thank you.